Go!
On your mark, get set, go.
Are we going?
Hey, now we're going. Hey, guys.
Squinting.
Hi.
Good job, Denny.
We're back.
All right. So,
I kind of miss Liz not being here because
Yeah,
she was
now
always
we-
fun to pick on.
Yeah.
So is somebody going to...
You're not too picky about who you guys worked since
Yeah,
we decided
okay.
this was going to be a race.
there it is.
What?
Oh,
We went
no,
3, 2,
we've
1,
got-
go. So here you go. Well, guys, we have finished up our week here. We're finishing it up today with Jim Linnell. We thank him and his wife Denise so much for coming up from Texas. They'll be heading back down. But we've had a good time. We had a class yesterday it was supposed to be 8 hours. I think we went 9.
I'm slow.
Yeah, Jim was talking. He said, I'll be done at 5, and Denise is over there just shaking her head. She's like, that's not happening. And there was one person that was right.
Yeah.
Is it the person that's always right?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So here we are. You guys throw your questions in. We've got Denny, Jim, and Kevin here working on some trading cards. Jim, we talked a little bit about the trading card type of thing. I guess really, when did it kind of more become a thing?
A thing.
Yeah.
Well, trading cards, the idea in the world of leatherworking is kind of new, but it's been around in the art world for quite a while. Artists have been doing their trading cards and using those. But we had at Tandy, the director of R&D was a guy by the name of Charlie Davenport, and he's a brilliant artist, and he and I decided that, why aren't leatherworkers doing this as well? I mean, what a great way to do both some practice as well as have a chance to try new things. That's really without having to build a big project or whatever. So anyway, we decided to introduce that, and it was introduced. That would have been probably back, probably 10 years or so ago. But it never really caught fire. I mean, the idea of the trading card is you need to trade them. It's when you make one, you swap it with somebody that's made one, and you build a collection, and that's the whole idea behind it. And so, anyway, after I retired, I decided, we need to put some new life back into this. So I created a Facebook group called Leather Artist Trading Cards, and man, that gave people finally the thing they really needed, which is, where do you go to swap these things? How do you do this trading back and forth? So that's what happened, and it really has taken off. I don't honestly know. You looked it up. How many people are part of that?
I can't. Let me look at it right quick. How I ended up finding it, I was just searching around one day. I can't remember if a customer said something to me about it or if I just happened to start looking at something. So I found it, and I found it was, you were the leader of the group or you were one of the admins of the group, and I was like, all right, that's pretty cool. I said, we should just start doing it. So Liz is like, well, what if we do it the last Friday of every month? We'll just have Kevin and Denny in here so we can get... It's hard for us to get Kevin from rolling bundles and working outside underneath a tent to in here and start doing leather work. But we've managed to be successful in it.
And he doesn't want me to tell anyone, but he said he actually has been enjoying this a little bit.
Don't let anybody know.
Yeah.
You
Sorry,
guys
Kevin.
are as funny as a rubber crutch. But that's all right. I do enjoy this because, I used to do a lot of leather work, and I just don't do as much of it as I could anymore. So this is kind of a welcome change.
So, question, and I don't know that I know the answer to this, but what are you going to do with the ones we make today? Do you have a plan for those?
Well, I have a plan probably for a couple of them. Denny, do I have a plan for a couple of them?
I had a plan, but I guess it's next now.
No, I'm fine with it.
I was wanting to trade Jim.
All right.
He was talking right after you left yesterday. He's like, I got a list already. And I said,
Well, I think a lot of people are probably going to want to get a hold of Jim's.
Well, maybe I'll just have to do more than one.
Yeah, do 6 or 8.
Well, I have to
And hurry up about it.
hurry up about it.
Jim, did you see who we had walking the door? We got Scott walking the door.
Hey, how are you?
Scott took the class yesterday.
That's right.
Hello, Scott.
He threatened he'd be back too.
I
So
did. I kept my word.
He said, I'm going to come in as soon as you guys open. I said, you might as well just come in at 11 so you can be a part of this event. Nick, I think that curtain got shut in the other side of the door. That's all right. We already got volunteers that would be willing to sacrifice. They probably even cover a stamp if you sent them one.
I'm not sending any. I'm going to leave them behind. It's going to be on your head to do what you want with them. That way I don't have to pick and choose or any of that kind of stuff.
You know, having you here has been getting expensive.
Huh? Yeah.
Having you here is getting expensive. Now you're talking stamps.
All right. What do I got to do here?
What do you got go? Oh, that's a leaf.
Yeah.
Well, see, you're halfway there already because I recognize it. Some of that stuff we end up doing here isn't really recognizable for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, this oak leaf, I do mine a little different than some folks. So, this
You know,
leaf-
they've just been around so long, and oak leaves look so good.
Yep.
You can't go wrong carving an oak leaf.
No, you can't. And you know, there's a lot of different kinds of oak leaves. In fact, doing some of the studying of all these different leatherworking styles and such. That
Hey,
I've
I wanted to
done.
make a point too here, Jim. You'll appreciate this. You know, those are the same tool.
Same tool number,
Yeah.
different generation.
Well, I don't know. One's a Craft Japan, the other one's a Craft Tool. And, you know, people feel so obligated to get a tool with that particular number on
yeah.
it because it's got to do that particular thing.
Oh, yeah.
In reality, it doesn't matter.
What number?
What matters?
I don't have that one.
370.
Okay. See, I got a 368. They made the vertical lined ones the
Yes.
same. Okay, mine's a different shape than what you got.
Yeah. Well, you know, and that's one of the neat things about leatherwork, I think, is you watch the tools because you'll find one that's one number and one that's the same number and they're different.
Well, that's why in my pattern packs that I did, I on purpose chose not to put tool numbers in there.
Well, that was probably smart.
Because, well, and
Because use what you got.
use what you got. That's the whole point. You know, a veiner's a veiner's a veiner. A pear shader, you know, use the one that fits the work you're doing. And the texture doesn't matter. You know, it just... But quite often people get hung up on that. One of the things, I already said this, but one of the things I just cannot handle is when people use an excuse like, I don't have that tool, as a reason not to do leatherwork. I mean, you talk about make me nuts. I mean, that's...
Well, it was always a thing for me as a store manager when they come in with a craft aid and say, I need all these tools. You know,
Well, you'd love it if you had them all right.
And I would tell them, you know, I really appreciate that, and I'd love to sell them to you. But you really don't need all those tools.
No, yeah, and of course that's why that list was on there is to try to sell you more tools.
Yep.
And it did do that.
It worked.
But again, the thing I've always been felt was more important was for people to learn to become craftsmen. Learn how to do what you want to do with what you got, and if you really do need something, well, go get it. But learn how to do what you can do with what you have. I was telling a story. We went to dinner last night. I was telling a story about this piece of leatherwork I have from Russia, and you know what? They don't have any Tandy stores or Springfield stores or anything like that over in Russia. They don't have any books by Al Stolman or anybody else that we think we learned from here. But this guy had it in his head he wanted to do some leather work, and so he figured out, well, I got an idea, now how do I do it? And he basically whittled it with his pocket knife, which, you know, now that's craftsmanship, that's creativity. They say that necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah, how many stories are there about how Al Stolman made tools out of nails?
Oh yeah, well, and you know, a lot of the tools that we use today are have evolved from those tools that some saddle maker back when decided he needed something to do a particular effect, and so he just made him a tool to do that. And now, it's available in 4 or 5 sizes and different textures and so forth.
Yep.
But that's one of the other things, when I started out, I didn't have all the money in the world to buy all the tools that I wanted. In fact, I didn't have a lot of tools for a long time. So I started, I learned how to make my tools do what I wanted them to do. And I have like a A104 background tool, which I think everybody knows what it is. I'll bet I've got 5 or 6 of those in my tool rack at the shop that are different sizes, because I take a narrow one down, or I make one shorter or whatever to make it fit the work that I was going to do, because they didn't make all those different sizes in an A104, but I wanted one, so.
Yeah. You gotta have one to fit that.
Yeah, so
one little spot on one project.
Modifying tools has been around a long time, and it's okay to do that. Y'all done yet?
Not quite. I got a little bit to go.
When I was first learning to do leather work, like I said, I didn't have a lot of money, and so I didn't have a lot of leather either. But I would literally practice on anything I had. I'd try, and I learned that, when you run out of leather, but you still got the backside you haven't done anything on yet,
Yeah.
you can actually do that. And then I found out later that, hey, that's a real deal. It's called rough out carving.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know you could actually do that, but I did, because, well, it was the only blank space I had to try out, an idea I had. And anyway, bottom line, you got to practice.
And try new things. It's just, if you don't try new things, you really don't grow very much, very fast. And so.
Well, I was doing these videos here this last week. I said many times, the reason I know so much about leatherwork is because I first of all learned how to do it wrong. I know all the wrong ways to do it, and that's one way to learn. Now it can be expensive if you don't learn the first time. You gotta make sure that
pay attention.
Yeah. Learn those lessons when they come around. But I don't. Which is why we do classes, and if we can shorten that learning curve for somebody, so they don't have to go through all that trial and error. Trial and error is a great teacher. It's not the cheapest teacher, but it's a great teacher.
I'd rather it be somebody else's trial and error, and I can learn from that.
Yeah, and that's, like I said, that's why we do classes. That's why we try to
They
pass
really
that
did
knowledge
good
along.
stuff. I stepped in and looked at all that work they were doing. Man, it was nice.
Yeah, they did. I felt everybody went out of that class with some success under their belt. The only penalty they really had is they had to listen to me. But
Well,
other than that, they actually hung in there. They're pretty good even with that.
Nobody got up and left, didn't we?
Yeah.
So we had a question kind of come in, and we get it every time we do trading cards. We have a trading card shape, but what is the average shape of a trading card?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think
Yeah,
these are the
What do you go
size.
to?
These are the size of a regular business card or a credit card.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the official trading card size is whatever they use in baseball trading cards, and I think that's maybe just a little bigger than this, but I don't think it really matters, Trading and getting somebody's work, or getting it, it doesn't matter whether it's a little bigger or a little smaller.
it's just nice to see somebody else's stuff up close.
Absolutely, and I've got, since we started this whole thing with the trading cards, I've got quite a few of them in a collection now, and I've got some I've had them sent to me from Vietnam. I've got some from France, from Germany, from where's that other guy from? He's from. There's one from Taiwan, but that's not the guy I'm thinking of. Where's he at? Anyway, I got them from all over the place, and you know what? Along with that comes all these different ways of doing stuff. You know, it's pretty easy, especially for somebody like me, to think, you know, I'm the only one that knows how to do this right, and so you know, and then you get some of these pieces of work that come in from
They just
some
blow
other
you
countries.
away.
Oh my gosh, I never thought of doing it like that, you know, and that's one of the other kind of great things about this. It just kind of expands your vision a little bit.
Yeah, I got to admit, every time I look at Denny's stuff, you know, it just amazes me that somebody so old and feeble can do that good of work.
Thank you. Yeah, that hurts.
Well, I think we're pretty much in the same boat.
Yeah.
Well, yesterday I was harassing him because, you know, he does work with a handicap.
Hey now.
Huh?
Hey now.
No, he does.
Are you insulting me or him?
The handicap is that, you know, all he's got is right-handed tools, and he's working left-handed.
Oh, yeah, you got a point.
Yeah,
there.
and he, in spite of that, he still does all right.
You'd be amazed at how many left-handed people are in this room right now. Right?
Better watch out.
Denny, we had somebody notice something about what's underneath your piece of doodling leather.
Hey, I learned this yesterday. I took a class from this guy, and he was saying he always put a piece of cardboard, or what is it that he was using?
Mat board?
Mat board underneath his material, and it did two things. It kept the material from stretching, and it also it lets you stamp a little bit deeper and show a little bit more definition.
Are they just zoomed in? They're zoomed in on you, so you can show the why.
Yeah.
You know, we always used to
Here,
use.
let me go to the overhead. Sorry, I'll switch over there.
Okay.
We used
Let
to
me know if
use
you can see it there.
Yeah, this is one that Jim did, and if you can see, it's got this poster board or mat board underneath it, but it's a very thin piece of leather. But if you look at all the definition he got out of this tooling, and then, okay, I'll just let Tony do this, and I'll talk.
You talk, I'll hold.
But then the leather is thin, and he didn't cut too awful deep, but he could bevel really deep and do all of his shading deep. And if you look at that mat board, it has the same impression on it that the top of the leather does. It actually lets you give a deeper impression than if you just use the leather by itself.
You better get back to it.
So I'm trying this. And I don't think this is a brand new process, because it was out of all the old Tandy books. That's how they did it. You know, rubber cement a piece of cardboard to the back of your material. But that's what I'm doing today.
We used to use record album jackets.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because they were thicker cardboard and such. You know, cereal box. Using a little thicker piece like that helps you get the additional depth. I used to use cereal boxes back then because I didn't know about having that extra cushion underneath that would help me carve deeper. So I started, but when I started using that, I found out that, hey, this lets me cheat. I mean, it lets me go deeper than I normally would. So, the real problem is, like back in the olden days, we used to work from kits, you know.
Oh yeah.
And so you have all your pieces pre-cut. They're all the right size. All the holes line up for the most part and everything. But if you're tooling that back and it stretches out of shape, you're going to have fun because nothing's going to fit anymore. So, that was pretty important to get that glued down or whatever.
You want to not a piece of cardboard or something that's corrugated is going to smash down. Something that's got some density
Borrow
to
a
it.
Vayner, Jim.
Yeah? Oh, which one do you like?
Probably any one will work, but I've just forgot to bring one. That'll do.
That'll work. Yeah.
I ain't really fussy. I'll try and stick
Says
it
who?
back in the same place.
That's all right. I don't care. All right. That'll be my special magic here. Denny, did you bring that wiggler with you?
Yes, I did. I got that. Actually, I've got two.
So mat board that Jim's using is what you would put in the back of a frame for framing.
Right, you put it around your picture to make your picture stand out. And, you know, it's kind of readily available, too. If you go to a frame shop, you know, they have that cutout piece that they cut out of the middle of that. And, you know, now they may want to try to sell it to you, but if you know people and you're nice, you might be able to talk them out of some of it pretty reasonable.
That's my problem right there.
You're not
The being nice part? Yeah, I
You're
understand.
not nice? Is that what you're saying?
I pay for every stick of it, I'm sure.
Wondered why I always had to pay for mine.
Probably charge you extra.
So here's a question I think Scout has kind of answered it in the chat, but what would you recommend, a thin or a thick piece of leather to learn carving, stamping, and tooling on?
I recommend whichever one you got.
As long as you're practicing?
As long as you're, doing leather work.
Yeah.
You know, the big deal, I think, is what Jim said, doing leather work is the biggest thing. But for me, making sure of what leather I would use to begin with is important. Because it's like learning to play guitar. If you learn on a cheap guitar, it's really hard to play. But you learn on a good one, it's easy. You work with a good piece of leather, and it's just, man,
It makes a difference. It
makes
sure
your
does.
life easier.
You know, these pieces we're working on here, I'm guessing, are probably Herman Oak, and I'm saying that just because of how it works. Nobody really told me, but
I hope so.
it's got some good color in it, and you know, that's one of the things when you're a beginner, you know, especially if you're not you're kind of supposed to. The books say that when you stamp the pear shading and the bevel and such, it's going to burnish and give you a nice dark color, and you're working with a less than top quality piece of leather. You may not be getting that, and so you're wondering, all right, what am I doing? Am I not doing this right, or do I not know what I'm doing? Or so, what do you got here? Where you at? This is what I want.
I can actually attest to that. Yesterday in a class we determined that it was my first time ever using it. So,
Oh, really?
yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah. So it is nice. It's tooled beautifully.
Could you tell a difference?
Definitely in the color, and when stamping, the definite the darkness of the varnish.
Yeah.
And it just felt like, you know, when the knife cut through it smooth, and you could just tell it was a much nicer quality.
There's two ways to discover how nice it is for a good piece of leather, and one is to start out with a good piece of leather, and then try and tool a not so good piece of leather. And that, for me, that's the most awakening, is to try and tool a not too good piece of leather after I've been tooling all this nice. You know, the other way is to tool bad leather and then change to a good one, like you were just saying. But,
Yeah, I got 5 hides of leather. Don't be telling me that. In my closet, I still got 5 hides in bedroom.
I didn't tell folks yesterday how I shop for leather when I shop for leather. You know, I'll go into a store if they got a stack of leather there that looks pretty good. You know, one of the first things I'll do, of course, is look around and see if anybody's watching, and then I'll take maybe the corner of it, and when nobody's looking, I'll go like that.
Yeah.
Hold on.
give it a little lick.
Denny didn't see that.
Hold on.
Now, why would I do that? Well, guess
What
what?
would you do? What do you do to it?
He licks it.
What do you do to it? I just didn't have the camera on. You see?
Oh, well, okay, there you go. See, I told you I look around to see if anybody's looking. That doesn't always go over well. Yeah, you know, people sometimes look at you funny. You're licking leather in the store, you know, they kind of
They
wonder.
think you're trying to spread COVID.
This guy. But why would I do that? Well, it immediately tells me it takes moisture really well, right? And then when nobody else is looking, I'll take my thumbnail and I'll just go like that. And look at that, it burnishes too. So two of the most important things that I need to know about a piece of leather: does it take moisture well, and is it going to burnish when I stamp it? I just figured that out. on that piece of leather. So if you see people out there licking leather, it's my fault. Or you could also shortcut that and just buy you a really good piece of leather like Herman Oak, and then you don't have to do that. But
You don't have to do the lick test.
well, you don't have to. That's pretty reliable, and the reason I say that is that it is my preferred leather. It's what I use all the time, and it really produces the results that I expect and that I want. I got over trying to be cheap with my leather a long time ago. I found that the difference in the results and the satisfaction I get out of working with a good piece of leather versus trying to make do with whatever I got, that's worth something. See, all the stuff that I did here in our demos, I didn't get to do this, did I? Look at that.
Oh yeah, you didn't use your.
I didn't
your
get to do
lifter.
it. Look at that.
That's beautiful, beautiful.
Isn't that cool?
That's something that you just about can't buy off the rack is a good pro pedal.
No, you can't. I noticed that you're carrying Osborne,
Yeah,
and they make an okay one,
it's got to be
but
sharpened.
yeah, it needs to be modified.
Yes.
And so, probably ought to show folks how this one's a little bit different than that. You see how the heel of this thing's been rounded off?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of them, when you get them, they're just sheared off. They're just squared off like that, and you got a square corner down here. If you'll just take and round that off, and that'll also probably sharpen it too. It'll probably give it a little steeper angle when you do that. But then, as with all of your cutting tools, you got to keep it stropped up. This here's a cutting tool. I do this with my lifter all the time, just to make sure that it cuts without me having to put a lot of extra effort into it.
Yeah, I never could make one of those undercut bevelers do what I wanted to do. You know, I always had to have a handheld thing like that.
Yeah, the undercut bevelers will undercut, but they don't
Yeah.
lift. The thing I like about using this over the undercut bevelers is that this will I actually stretch the leather upward like that. It's not just digging under, but it's also digging under, and then with the right casing in your leather, you stretch it as well, and so you get it raised up. And I don't know, are you over the top of me here? What view have you got?
I'm on top now.
Yeah, but you're not close enough. All right. If I do that though, maybe you can. That one.
Here you go. Here, hold on. There you go.
This one. I'm over there. Okay. So now if I can just. All right. Yeah. Look at that. Look. Check that out. See how much that's raised up already above the surface of the leather? Is that cool?
Yeah.
All right. But watch. Now I'm going to add even more depth to it. I'm going to take my background tool, and in here, right up against where I stretched it up, I'm going to hammer it down. I'm going to put some background in there. So now the contrast between what I've raised up and what I've pushed down is dramatic. It's going to look like I've carved this, well, deeper than this piece of leather is.
When using the Pro pedal,
Yeah.
what kind of moisture content are you
About the
looking
same as you would with any of the other carving. I mean, it needs to have some moisture in it, about, you'd have when you're beveling or any of the other steps. I think I've only initially wet this down that first time, so I don't know that I've added any more. And, I did that here just prior to the backgrounding, which that's when it's usually about as dry. Now I'll have to dampen it again here to do decorative cuts, if I even choose to do some on this. I might just get this done, call it done, and then I get to win for being the first one done.
Kevin,
What?
what do you think of that little piece, Kevin, out there on the screen?
Oh, Becky was here.
She still is. We got a special guest in here.
Hi.
Hi, Becky.
That's the one I wanted you to see, Jim.
That's pretty cool. Let's see it.
That's an
I'll hand-
old
I'll hand you that
picture.
one.
Well, one of them's got to be repaired a little bit. That one does.
And then
So,
we'll show
you know, this is 30-some years old. The flipper's
Yeah,
kind of
I can
out.
see
So
it broke
I need
right
to
there.
glue a little bit
Yeah,
down
you-
there, but that's okay.
That's all right. That's pretty
But
cool.
people tell you can't. Mix
What did you fill that with?
Pardon?
What did you stuff your embossing with?
There ain't nothing stuffed in there.
Just heavy piece of leather. Oh yeah,
Just
it
a heavy
is.
piece of
I
leather.
see that. All right.
And you know, people tell you can't mix acrylic paint and dye.
I've heard that.
Well, I beg to differ, because that background on that one is mixed.
This?
No,
Oh, that one over
that
there.
one over there, yeah. Yeah, I should have glued that whole thing down, but
There you go.
there you go. That's a good.
You can see what went on behind there.
Yeah, it used to be glued to something.
Yeah,
and
looks like you had that glued down. But how about that?
got good depth to it.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you
Oh,
did.
there's a date on that one, 85.
85. That's a couple of years back.
I did a bunch of those one year. Had a request for some boxes,
You did
some
that
round
on some
leather boxes, which was way above my pay grade at that time. But anyway, that's what I did.
Cool.
Oh, I didn't even hear her come in.
I didn't
You didn't
either.
even hear her leave, did you?
No,
Probably afraid somebody'd swing the camera at her.
that's pretty doggone amazing right there, I can tell you.
You never know what she
Because you can always usually hear her. Not that that's a bad thing.
She's a lot more brave than Lindsay is, though.
To actually come in the room.
Oh, if that light's on, Lindsay is afraid to come down the hallway.
Just thinking, maybe this is enough. Oh,
All right. So now that we've lifted those parts of it, say we do that on a wallet back. And we got those lifted parts and we sit on them after we put them in our pockets.
Yeah.
How do we keep them lifted?
Well, I
Don't
don't
sit
know
on
that
them?
I would bother to do that.
one
on a
like
wallet.
that, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that I would bother to do that on a wallet. This on a handbag, or it would probably be all right on a belt. I have taken the leather dust and filled these. You know what the leather dust is? That's just literally that. It's leather dust, really, really fine shavings, or even less than that. But mix that with some rubber cement, make kind of a putty, and then fill them with that. You could do that. When you put a finish on something like this, an acrylic finish, in fact, I did a feather earlier this week, and I really saturated it with some acrylic finish, and this wants to stay up really, really strongly there. And that's the acrylic that makes it want to do that. In fact, it's the same thing I did here with these feathers. We made some feathers this week too. And these feathers, 2 ounce or less. Yeah.
That's good.
And that's just stiffened with acrylic. I think I used, what was it? RTC. That's what was available. So anyway, any acrylic will do that, but it stiffened it up, and you can see they hold their shape real well. So when you put a finish then on something like this, that finish is going to stiffen this up a little bit and give it a little bit of resilience. But wear and tear is going to wear it down too.
Well, the
so-
RTC, essentially acrylic finishes, aren't they basically watered down glue?
Yeah, well, I don't know about that. Don't ask me. I'm not a chemist. I sound like, yeah, never mind.
But at any rate, it dries and stiffens things.
It dries and stiffens things up, and yes, you can use watered down glue to do that. I actually have used that to stiffen some of the three-dimensional things that I've done. But the just adding some body like that. But more than that, just think about what you're going to be doing. If you're making something that's going to have a lot of wear and tear on it, a lot of use, well, it may not be something that's going to last forever and stand out like that. In this case right here, it's all about me showing off. It has nothing to do with practicality at all. It should hold up on a trading card, though.
Yeah, unless they carry it in their back pocket.
Well, if they do that,
I don't think that's going to happen. Mhm.
We were talking about a little bit about fishing before we came in here, but
we were?
okay. Before Kevin got in here, we were talking a little about fishing.
Okay.
But we kept you behind the camera too much, and we don't have a very good fishing spot here inside the store. So
Yeah.
there was a question that since Kevin brought his fish in, if you were able to get out, Kevin took you out fishing, but
If he did? No, he didn't.
he didn't. He just
No,
took you
that
out.
was a question?
It was. Well, I was answering it at the same time.
Oh, okay.
He took you to dinner, but that was about it.
Yeah, and I had
At a fish house.
I did
Oh, you-
have
okay,
fish.
so
I even
Kevin
ate
took you out for
yeah,
fish.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so.
In a roundabout
In a
way.
roundabout way. We did get that done. Yeah. Yeah, rumor has it there is some fishing around here. You know what I was doing a year ago today, though? I was fishing on a stream in Montana, up in the mountains. And it was a lot cooler there. It really was a lot cooler there.
Everywhere's a lot cooler than here right now.
Well, yeah, and this is cooler than Texas, so.
It ain't bad today.
No, it's pretty
Yeah.
nice out there.
Yeah, today's
Humidity's
been-
up a little bit because there's some moisture in the air out there, but not that bad. Okay, let's see here.
Fingernail marks don't count, do they?
Yeah, that's tooling.
I hope so.
That's a good way to put it. Well, now I'm at a loss. Don't know what I want to do.
Hello?
I wish somebody called me. I don't think I muted my phone.
That I
I'd love for
don't.
y'all to hear it. It's not your normal ring.
Oh, hi, Liz. Is this Liz? Yes, I am. All right, bye.
Was that our Liz?
No, it was Shanna up in the front.
Oh, that didn't work out. I didn't Liz at all.
It sounded like Liz,
Yeah.
but I'll tell you, that's a real experience. It's having hearing aids and a phone that goes through hearing aids.
Yeah, I have that too.
Kind of exciting, ain't it?
Oh, it can
Have
be.
that thing go off in your head.
Well, especially like when you're on camera and you're trying to do a video and stuff, and you've got it. Mine doesn't ring. I have an elk bugle.
Well, it's a little different for you. I mean, you're in a professional setting more than I am. I'm in a setting that doesn't matter all that much
Did you
to
just
me.
call me? All right, yeah. So usually people know it's that I got a phone call, and it goes off here too. But when I mute that for when we're doing something serious here, this isn't serious, obviously. When we do something serious here, and that goes off in my ear, sometimes I lose my train of thought for a second. I keep wanting to look around and see where he's at.
Yeah, I was wondering why I didn't turn mine off. Then I realized it's because it didn't matter.
Yeah. Well, I'm usually pretty good at doing that. I've embarrassed myself more than once, let me tell you.
Since you're to a certain part here, Jim,
Who is?
you.
Yeah, what?
Or are you sign? Oh, you're signing on this.
Yeah, I'm racing.
Did you-
Racing to finish here.
You did some decorative cuts already.
Yeah, I did.
I know the answer to this already,
Go ahead.
but how do I make my decorative cuts better and make them decorative and not distractive?
Practice.
Oh,
That's the whole deal.
That's the easy answer, but yeah.
I think this one's as good as it's gonna get.
When
It
I-
ain't all that wonderful.
When I do classes on swivel knife and just everything you need to know about how to master a swivel knife, that can be a 4-hour class.
you want one with cardboard on it this time, Kevin?
Well, I should have put it on the first time, but I just.
Well, we're just setting you behind the 8 ball to start off with. Oh, sorry, Jim. That helps out with your signature, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It's all right. It's a bunch of curly cues anyway. So.
I'll do my little flower that I like.
We were talking about 8 balls before we went live, though. You were telling a little story, Kevin, that I don't think that I've heard before.
One down.
What's that?
Your pool shark days.
Oh. Well, there was a period of time there back before I started doing leatherwork. But, there's always somebody better. And the North Dakota state champion was better than me. And he reminded me quite thoroughly.
So did you
But I
teach
did
it?
get all the way up to him. That was a long time ago.
You didn't have to teach him a lesson?
No. He already knew.
Oh, well, I know people like that.
But I did manage to pay for my first car that way.
I think that's pretty cool. So basically, you're a pool hustler.
Well, it was. I ain't anymore. I just really like to play that game. And my dad was. Now, he was a hustler. He lived down here in Springfield, Missouri. And I learned more dirty tricks from him than... But my gosh, he was good.
Let's see, there was a question if you've ever fished with a Tenkara rod.
That's from Terry Beeson, isn't it?
It is from Terry Beeson.
A what rod?
Ankara. I think Terry, that's Japanese, right? I think he was telling me, I think it's some monks in a monastery somewhere in Japan. And Terry, you're going to have to tell me if I'm wrong when I say this, but I think they fish in this one string behind their monastery somewhere, but they're only trying to catch one certain size fish because it fits in their frying pan perfectly. And they use this rod. They don't use a reel. It's just a really long, and it's nice. I saw one. He brought one in. It's a really nice feeling fly rod, but they just use a single length of line and fish for this one size of fish with these rods.
So that's kind of like some of the fishing I've done. It was with a willow branch and a string tied on the end of it.
Uh-huh.
And you know what? I've caught a lot of brook trout with something like that. I didn't know it had a name like that, though.
Well, like I said, I think they're just from this one. Terry, you're going to have to tell me if I'm wrong, because I could be lying. But I think it's just from this one monastery in Japan is where these come from.
So we did have another question. They said, how did Jim come up with his name? They said it was probably mom and dad gave it to him. But I think they were talking about Elk Track Studio.
Elk Track Studio. Well, the rumor has it I like to go hunting a lot. And in fact, my preference is to go elk hunting. I like doing that a lot. And that's... it just sounded like a cool name, I guess. But it also kind of... And there's some elk antlers and stuff like that hanging around in my shop. But that's where that name came from. There's like 3 things I like to do. Obviously, leatherwork's one of them. The other thing that really I have no problem using a bunch of time doing is going fishing. And the other one is hunting. And growing up in Montana, all of those things kind of are in the air up there. Well, not the leatherwork part, but well, it was. I mean, that's where I caught the bug too. Was up there.
Yeah, it was fishing for me, man. If I wasn't playing pool, I was fishing. They knew where to find me.
Did you ever tie any fishing line on your pool cue?
No. But there's a lot of willows up where I lived, and I understand what that is. I remember the first time I went fishing up around Fargo, North Dakota. That was an experience, because where I came from, if you caught a 5-pound catfish in the town I was living in, that made the newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
So I went fishing one afternoon in the Red River. I thought, well, hey, it's a river, it's close by, I can walk to it, and went down there, and hey, it looked pretty good, you know. So I'm a normal kid. I figured there's some people that have lost some fishing line around here, and I looked in the willows, and sure enough, I found a pretty good length of string with a big old hook on it, and I pulled it out and went and got myself a better stick for a rod. Went back in the woods and turned over a few logs till I found some worms, and I chucked that thing down in the river. I hooked a big old fish. I mean, I hooked a big old fish, and the line was heavy. It was probably 20-pound test, and I could not do much of nothing except go down the bank with that fish, and it was not a good bank. It was muddy and it was steep, and I wanted to catch. I couldn't go any further. The fish just broke my line.
That sounds like a fish story.
Yeah, it was. I'm telling you. I went home immediately and got my fishing reel, my real one, and I went back down there and found me some worms and started fishing. First fish I caught was about an 8-pound catfish. I'd never caught one that big in my life. Then I hooked a big one. I mean, a big one. It was a big fish. I couldn't even hardly get him up from the bottom. I just let him swim around down there, you know. And he got off. Oh my goodness, that was so aggravating. But I stayed right there and was fishing. And you know what? I thought, I'm pretty darn sure that I hooked that same fish. Because this time I was patient. I let him swim around on the bottom and swim around on the bottom. And slowly but surely he came up. And I saw this big flash of silver. And I'm thinking, I got a 20-pound catfish here if I can get this thing in. And he went down again, and I stayed on it and just waited. And pretty soon that stupid thing come over and laid up sideways on the water. It was a sheephead. A big old drum sheephead, nasty as all get out. Oh, I was frustrated. Anyway, I let him go. Because they ain't worth nothing to eat.
No.
But that was about as exciting a time as I'd ever had up there fishing.
In Fargo, yeah. There's not a lot more things to do up in Fargo anyway.
Well, I don't, like I said, all I ever cared about was fishing and playing pool and doing leather work at that time. And so fishing was great. A friend and I we'd go out and catch a bunch of small sheephead so that we could use them for bait in the evening. And we'd go out in the evening about 7 o'clock and just sit down on a little grassy embankment down by the river. And we'd just sit there and drink that half-gallon bottle of wine all through the night, and then when time came to go, one night we must have had We must have had 80 pounds of catfish on a stringer that we was going to take home. And trying to watch two drunks climb up a 6-foot bank, dragging 80 pounds of catfish and all their gear. Then we lost our flashlight.
I think you had that story in the catalog one year, didn't you?
You know, it's a true story. I mean,
Well, it sounds true. You're telling it the same way.
He just got it down.
well, it was hilarious at the time. We was walking through the path back through the woods to get back to the car, and all of a sudden, man, the weight on the other end of the stringer took two of us to carry that stringer. I had one end and my friend had the other one. He was behind me, and all of a sudden it just went dead. I couldn't move no more. Here he was. He'd fallen off the trail a little bit into this big stupid bush. He was just sitting there laughing like crazy. What are you doing? He said, I can't get up. Anyway. We got back home and Becky had to live up to the one promise she made to me before we got married. And that was that she wasn't going to complain if I got home in the middle of the night with mud all over my shoes in the living room. And she did. She was a really good sport about it. Did I ever tell you, Jim, I used to raise ferrets?
No, you didn't.
Well, I did. And when she moved in with me, I told her I had ferrets. And they're real cute, you know. I kept them in my bathroom because I was a bachelor. And they had their nice little, they're a lot of fun. But anyway, first time Becky got in there, she said, those things don't bite, do they? I said, no, they're not going to bite. Just go in there and do your hair, do whatever you got to do in the morning. And she did. Then I hear this screaming. One of the ferrets crawled up the leg of her pants.
Yeah, that would do it.
Well, it did it for her. It never bothered me. Of course, they didn't really do that, but...
I've never met an animal so spunky.
Yeah, they never hurt anything.
They might steal your stuff, though.
They'll steal your stuff, there's no doubt.
I had one, his name was Walter.
But I haven't trained. They'd roll over for a piece of popcorn.
A Cheerio.
Cherries. Mine like cherries. And they go... I didn't mind the popcorn because that was dry. They'd take a piece of popcorn, they go hide it up inside the lining of the couch or something, you know.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. My friend did the same thing. I didn't even know you could get up in there. Next thing I know, there's something underneath my arm. He's nestled underneath. Yeah, he's trying to get to me from
That's all you
inside
ever
the couch.
hear. In the middle of the night, it's...
And when they sleep, it's like they go unconscious.
Yeah.
Man, you... But eventually they had to go. They had to go.
In high school, my senior year in high school, I made my spending money by running a trap line.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. We had, of course, growing up in Montana, that was not all that weird a thing, you know. Well, I guess it was. I was the only I knew that did it, but I had a neighbor that was pretty experienced, but I had access to the Tongue River up there, which is a tributary into the Yellowstone, and we ran trap line for beaver up there during the one winter, and you know, I made more money than I was rich. I mean, of course we split it, the catch, and at the end of the season, I think we sold it, and I think my cut was like $1,700 or something like that.
Wow.
let's see, that'd have been 1973. That was a lot of money. You know, I was pretty tickled with that. So, but it was a little different than hustle and pool. It's
Yeah.
you know, a different skill set there.
Well, my dad owned it was a little I don't know what you want to call it, maybe. He called it a recreation center. Very small farm town. And there were 6 pool tables and a couple of pinball machines and a jukebox and a bar that sold hamburgers and fries. Man, it was packed. But I had a pretty good advantage. He had a pool table in our basement, and it was a good one. And he taught me how to play from a very early age.
Then you better get moved on to the next one.
I am. I'm watching Jim.
Just resting.
Contemplating.
Jim, you have a ceramic blade in your swivel knife.
Yes, lucky me.
Yeah. Why is that?
Lucky you.
Why is that?
Yeah. Do you just like it so much better than a metal blade?
Well, I like it's because the one that's in my knife.
Old Faithful?
It is Old Faithful. I think I've called it that before. Yeah, I've had this one. Well, let me tell you another story, I guess. Back probably around the late 80s, mid to late 80s, the newest thing in swivel knife blades came out. They were ceramic blades, and I happened to be a regional manager for Tandy at the time. And George Hurst was the merchandise manager, and so we were down there in Texas for one of our regional meetings, manager meetings, and he had these ceramic blades laying out on his desk there, and he said, "Here, boys," he said, "here's the new thing in swivel knife blades, the ceramic blades." And he had one of everything you can imagine. You know, he had some 1/2-inch, 3/8, angle blades, filigree blades, you know, all the different ways that blades are made, and 1/4-inch blades, of course. And he, you know, did a poll. He said, "Which ones do you think we ought to put in the line?" And I've always used a 1/4-inch straight blade, whether it was metal or whatever. And I said, "Well, 1/4-inch is all you need. That's all anybody ever needs, you know." And so but everybody else voted, and they kind of basically wanted to use what they had in all the regular lines. So they carried a 3/8 and a angle and all those different ones. And anyway, the 1/4-inch straight blade never made the cut. And so when the voting was done, I went over and picked up that 1/4-inch blade, and I said, "Then you don't need this one, then, do you?" And so this one I'm using right here is actually that prototype.
You've had a ceramic blade for that many years?
I've had a ceramic blade for that many years.
How have you not dropped it?
It has been chipped before.
Oh,
I was just going to ask you to tell that story.
no kidding.
Yeah, it has been chipped before, and which pretty well upset me. And it wasn't. I didn't drop it. It just went off the edge of a piece of leather and hit
That's all it takes.
the granite, and the corner chipped, and there you go. is. But the reason I use it, that's probably really the question you were wanting me to tell, was there's nothing special about it being ceramic. What is kind of cool about it is the fact it's so thick. You know, look, today everybody got these really skinny, thin blades and such. And that's so you can do really fine work, like, you know, like these little lines I'm doing here, that, you know, you need a really thin blade to be able to do that.
You can tell.
But then when we get into doing decorative cuts and things like that, their cuts don't tend to want to open up quite so wide because, well, there's not a lot there to spread the leather apart because they're using a real thin blade. So that's why I prefer to use this one in particular. It's mostly because of the thickness of it. They just don't make them like that much anymore. Somebody somewhere's convinced people that if you want to do really fine work, you got to have like really fine tools and such. And I disagree. I think it has more to do with how much you're willing to practice and how much effort you're willing to put in to learn how to use the tools you got. You've seen me here already sign my name a couple of times, and with this one, and I've got some stuff here where I even sometimes get finer than that, smaller than that.
So that's why my decorative cut chest didn't open up.
I don't know.
I was using a filigree.
You were using a filigree blade? Yeah,
Yeah.
Those are usually pretty thin stuff, and filigree blade is going to be really hard. I also, I'll, as long as I'm sharing my opinion freely here, I also don't like angle blades. You're not using one, are you?
No, I never have.
You're not? Okay, good.
Well, I shouldn't say that. I have used them, but I don't care for them either.
I don't care for them because I don't think an angle blade is helpful when you're trying to do nice fluid curves and such. You have to pull and force that tool around a curve. But when I do a curving cut like these things here, I can just twist that blade and it just does it all by itself. I don't know. I will confess that I'm old school in a lot of the stuff that I do, and I do it the way it has worked for a long time, and people look at the stuff I do and say, oh my gosh, how come mine don't come out like that? I'm not one to think that you have to go buy, you know, the latest and greatest tool to be able to do what you want to do. One of the funniest things to do, well, it's funny, but it's sad too, is just ask a question sometime, like out on Facebook and one of these leather groups. What swivel knife should I get? Or whose tools should I buy? Oh my God! I mean that's a thread that will go on and on and on and on, and everybody's got their own opinion, and I mean a lot of those opinions come out sounding like you're just stupid if you don't do this. I mean, if this is the only right way to do it, and you know, it's like you can't even begin to think you're a leather worker if you don't buy this guy's tool or if you don't use that particular one, and you know, it's funny because there's so many people that are so misinformed, but what's also sad about it is that if there's some beginner out there that's asking that question in all simplicity, really, I just want some help. Somebody, you know, tell me how to get started. That person goes away just confused as all get-outs. In fact, they could actually be scared. They might think that, oh my God, I'm looking at the prices of some of the. Yeah, I'm looking at the prices of some of these things. There's no way I can afford to do leather work. And that's criminal to do that to somebody that's aspiring to be a leather worker, to tell them, oh, yeah, you can, but you'll never be able to afford it. Because that's kind of actually what you tell them. That's actually what it sounds like to that beginner that's trying to get started. That can make me angry when I hear that.
I was making sure you signed your card, Denny.
I did.
Kevin, did you sign your?
I think
Been
so.
signing your cards? Oh, I see it on there. Oh, sorry, Jim.
I'm getting lazy.
I thought you fell asleep.
No. Not yet.
Not yet. It's too early for nap, huh? Yeah, I say that in when about tools and all. I was telling folks here before we got underway that I probably have one of the bigger collections of tools and such of anybody I know. You remember Dick Gill, right?
Yes.
I have his toolbox.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I also have it full. And it's full of craft tools that were all made before 1963. I have the complete set of original craft tools, which is right at 600 tools.
Yeah.
And I'm telling people they don't need to worry about buying a lot of tools. That doesn't
Well,
take
there's
a
a
lot to do leather.
You don't need a whole bunch of tools.
No.
But if you're a collector,
Or you're a leather geek.
yeah, then that's a different thing.
Yeah. Well, and it doesn't take that. In fact, here I am doing leather work with like a swivel knife I've had for 40 years. Mm-hmm. You know how many swivel knives I got?
And you told me once.
Yeah, I know. Last time I counted, it was over 130 unique different swivel knives.
That's a lot.
That's on the verge of having a problem, isn't it?
Yeah. I kind of.
That's like somebody that's got issues, but when you start doing something and you've been at it for like all your life, you accumulate these things.
Yeah.
And I didn't go out and buy them all at once. I promise you.
Well, no, what's the fun in that?
Yeah, what's the fun in that? I have to say, in all honesty, my leatherwork paid for all that.
Oh, that's what counts.
Yeah, back when I first got started and started selling stuff, of course, I was doing it in high school, and I had, relatives all lined up wanting me to make them something. You're doing this in class, why don't you make me a belt, or why don't you make me a wallet, or whatever, But my response was, well, I'm glad to do that, but you're going to have to buy the leather because and then you'll also, if you want that particular design on it right there, you're going to have to buy me this tool and this tool and this tool. And then when I get all done with it, I submit it and I get a grade on it, and then I give it to them, and a lot of times they give me some extra money just for doing it.
Ooh.
And so a lot of my tools, like I said, I accumulated a lot of tools, but somebody else paid the bill. And I think I said this, I think in one of the videos we did this week, that I think leatherwork, well, I'm confident leatherwork is one of the few hobbies, crafts, whatever you can get into that will pay for itself. And it will pay for itself right off the bat. Because you were talking about this morning about, you can put black dye on a belt, right?
Right.
Okay, and you could buy that belt pretty reasonable, and you could probably sell a good leather belt that's black, it's got a buckle on. You could probably sell that for $10 over what you paid for it.
Oh, easily.
And have a better belt than they can go buy.
Yep.
And you got paid to practice. You got paid to do leather work. Somebody else paid the bill for you to do leather work, and you got some extra money to do, maybe go buy another tool. How many other things can you get into doing that? How many other things can you invest your time into that would pay you back like that?
You're right. Leathercraft is just, it's a unique thing. One of the things I used to do for the kids on my school demonstrations, I took a wallet back and I had the kids come up. I'd tell them, I need a volunteer. That would be you. And I'd have him come up there and I'd hold the hefty handle with my hand.
Oh, yeah.
And he'd pound on it, and there was this happy little deer.
Yeah.
And then I'd have another volunteer come up there, and he'd pound on it, and there's this happy little cabin.
You sound like Bob Ross right now.
Well, anyway,
happy little deer in a happy little cabin.
But anyway, we ended up with a wallet back with a deer and a cabin jumping over a fence and some trees, and it was all stuff that the kids did. Mm-hmm. And
how many times you get your knuckles wrapped?
Almost never. They
because
were so
you had
careful.
What you do, you hold it like that and say, here, now put your hand right on top of mine. I've learned this lesson a long time ago. I did a few of those.
When we were all done, I would put a little bit of brown dye around the edge, and I would put highlighter over the top, and I'd ask them, I said, do you know what I'm going to do with this? I'm going to take that wallet back to my store, and I'm going to glue it onto an interior, and I'm going to sell that wallet for $25. And that always amazed them, but it was true. That's what we did. Every time I did a demo, I had a wallet, and we would sell those in our store, and we never...
Isn't there a law against having
Yeah,
kids, child labor laws like that?
Don't go spreading it around. There may be, I don't know.
On your oak leaf, Jim, what were you using to background after you lifted? Not the
mat.
outside.
The mat around it.
Well, I used an A104 in the deep places, and then around the rest of it, I used
the
a E294. Yeah, it's the only
So
real
A104
is up close.
that's the mat.
That's the mat, and then the E294 to feather it out and make that fade away from there.
The other question was, did we finish the other feather that I made you stop on last time?
Somebody asked that?
They did. Rolf did.
I'll have to finish that then, won't I?
Yeah. What color of antique gel do
I
you
don't
want?
care. What do you got? Something brown. You got anything?
Last time you said you didn't care, I brought like 7 bottles.
I know it, and I only need one, and that's I.
You want dark brown?
Yeah, that works perfect.
Okay.
I thought you'd never ask.
All right. Well, I can ask again if you want.
And a paper plate,
And a paper plate?
paper towels.
Okay.
Y'all quit. What's the deal? Are we out of time?
I'm having more fun than when I was tooling.
Yeah, we just
Yeah.
like to watch. I've never done many feathers, to be quite honest. I just never did.
Well, we did, that kind yesterday. I thought I'd do one a different way today.
Well, I like the way you did it. Looks very nice.
So, using Old Faithful for all of this. So, that's all there is to it. Every once in a while, when I'm doing some project in my shop, I'll, I get to the decorative cuts part, or maybe I'm cutting it out or whatever, but I'll put my phone on, hook it up to Facebook Live, and Denise will just, walk around and just stream it. I don't talk. I don't do anything. I just sitting there cutting, and it's amazing how many people think, man, that's so cool to just watch you do that. But, I'm the one that's getting to practice. Y'all are busy wasting time watching me do leatherwork when you should be practicing too. Hint, hint.
I'm developing insights here.
I just practiced, right?
Okay, all right.
I said dark brown, but how do you feel about medium brown?
Oh, I think that's even better.
That's what I thought. I was making an executive decision. I was like, I bet you he'll really love this one. See how valuable I am, Kevin?
Yeah.
I have a way of making the room quiet, evidently.
I guess. Well, I just was chastising him for not doing
Well, we
anything.
could. I did something. I just stopped sooner than you did. I could sit here and swap old Tandy stories, but boy, that'd be boring.
Boy, no kidding. We would put everybody to sleep, because you know more than one or two, and I know a couple too. So we did enough of that last night.
Yeah.
For anybody that's listening in and watching, Kevin and I have worked together, known each other for
Quite a while.
a long time. Collectively, between us, there's 64 years about that we gave to Tandy Leather.
Oh, Tandy, yeah.
Yeah, and that's just there, and
My gosh.
in the leather business in general. Of course, I'm not old like some here might be, but
Well, Denny is. He's.
yeah, but
Kevin, do you feather? There's been a request for you
do
to
you
try a feather.
do you feather? That sounds really interesting.
You know, I'd like to think that I could feather, but in all truth,
You can only flower.
no. I
You got your sparrow.
yeah, the bird, and I do that, and I can tool a feather. If I sit here and look at Jim's feather, I can copy it.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty good copier, which is basically what leatherwork is
That's
copying.
what
That's how we learn.
Jim
But-
was talking about that yesterday. He said he's never done a design that he hasn't gotten from someone else or from something else.
Yeah.
When you strop your ceramic blade,
Actually,
you're not
there's no
really
point,
you're not really sharpening and or polishing it, but you are doing, because you do every time. You said before, every time you pick it up, you strop it.
Well, it does clean any residue
There you go. That's,
off the blade.
That's exactly right. And there is residue.
Yes.
One of the things, and I mentioned this in my classes here, is that Herman oak is great leather. It really is. And one of the things that makes it great leather is the way in which it's tanned. It's pit tanned, but they also, one of the final processes is they'll hand run fat liquors and oils into it. And that's what gives us that burnish. That's the stuff that gets down in there and comes up to the surface when we're stamping it. But it's also the stuff that will build up on your knife.
Yep.
And if you don't stop once in a while and strop it, even a ceramic blade. Now, when you strop a steel blade, you're also polishing it and getting a little keener edge on it.
But Tony's right. You're not sharpening your ceramic blade at all, really.
No, I'm cleaning it.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it.
And so, yeah, it needs to be done. And some of that's just habit. I've done a lot of leather work, and it is habit just every so often to put
Strap your knife.
to strop your knife. Yeah, I tell beginners that every time you pick it up, you should strop it. That's just basic rules. If you do that, you can never have a knife that's too polished, that's working too well, that's working too smoothly. So I almost didn't leave room here to sign this. It's pretty cool to know I can put everybody to sleep in the room, isn't it?
What'd you say?
Everybody's in a leather trance.
You haven't seen any of Andy's videos.
Oh, poor Andy. Must be all those fat liquors you keep talking about.
What is this, Jim? Just a plain old
Yeah, it's a
bulky
pencil.
thing?
It's a pencil.
Oh. So you write it out.
That's
I sign my name and then I cut it
That's
in.
a stencil.
Yeah.
Well, that's a cool way of doing it.
Well, I gotta have a tracing pattern. What if I misspelled it? How embarrassing would that be?
Yeah, we talked about it earlier. He was concerned about misspelling it. I let him know that the I comes after the J.
I'm
Would you
really
like-
happy I don't have a name like Ebenezer or something like that. Can you imagine carving that in there?
E-B. Oh, it's not an A.
I hope there's not an Ebenezer watching. No, nothing personal.
Sorry, Eb.
And
Sorry,
I'd be changing that to E something.
Eddie.
See, I gotta make sure I get Denny's tools back to him.
Yep, Andy's on here.
Yeah, he's got a crying face happening.
You know I love you, Andy.
Yeah, sounds like it. You also love watching his videos to go to bed at night. Out like a light.
Andy's no longer on here.
Wow. Bye, Andy.
Bye, Andy.
He's got his headphones on at his desk. Now he's just looking out the window crying.
Hang in there, Andy.
Do I know Andy?
Yeah, you met him with Ryan.
Andy and Ryan were in here.
Okay.
They're from the R&D department.
Oh.
They're busy developing personalities, it sounds like. Sorry, Andy.
Andy's personality is being quiet.
We'll be discussing your pay rate.
It might be counseling.
Andy, we're setting you up with a therapist.
Yeah.
Blame Holly.
Blame me, you're welcome.
Talking about how far Waco is from everybody and the classes that you're doing out there. What's that? Is next month?
Yeah, it's second weekend of the month?
Yeah, the 12th.
2 weeks away.
Yeah. You know what I get to do this afternoon, though? At 5 o'clock.
You get to drive.
No, well, I might be. I don't know. But I have to check in to see if I have to show up for jury duty on Monday.
I just
Just tell them you have a biased opinion on everything.
Oh, I do. I do. I even have proof of that.
Yeah, I got notified the beginning of July, and I got a note last night. And the letter said your jury duty is canceled. You don't have to show up at all or call either.
Really?
That was kind of nice.
You did?
I did.
What did you do to make that happen like that?
I just live a good life.
Well, I'm in trouble.
I don't know how it happened, but it did.
That's awesome.
Well, I think around here a lot of times stuff doesn't go to trial either.
Well, I'm kind of
People just shoot one another, and
The only time I've ever been called for jury duty was I was living in Craig, Colorado at the time, and it was a night court deal. I had to show up at 9 o'clock at night, and then I had to sit out in the car until they let me in, and then they said, "We don't need you, thank you."
wow.
So I haven't been called since.
They must have settled.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I've actually been pretty fortunate. I haven't had to do that.
Well, I haven't either. I've gotten several notifications, but it's always just
They always pull my wife's name.
don't have to show up.
Done jury duty.
You did?
Anyway.
Did you hang anyone?
Three
Or?
strikes and you're out. And that was his third strike, so.
All right. So, you want me to smear color now, or are we still doing trading cards? I have one left here.
Oh, you've got more than that. If you
Oh,
Why don't we color up a feather? What do you think, Kevin?
You guys color up the feather.
You better get out to your tent.
I got stuff I got to do, so I'm going to
So
go
we
do
went
it.
overtime?
It's over.
Like-
We're at 12:23.
Yeah, what time's it supposed to end?
Whenever we get done.
Oh, okay. Well, I've done threes.
Oh, about an hour ago.
Okay. All right. Well,
Very nice.
let me continue to make a mess then.
Please do.
Oh, do you need something to color on?
Let's see. I'm going to take.
I'll find something, don't worry.
There's more paper
I
towels.
got
in the
yours
box
put
behind you.
back, and I'm all good. And
Okay.
you can
These are yours.
other Denny's.
Well, okay.
You want to do?
Yeah, that's right. He's the one
one
that grinds the end of them, right?
Probably so. I think we'll do that on the after party.
What?
The feather
Oh, okay.
coloring, and I'll record it so that we can put it on YouTube later, so it'll be a separate video.
Okay.
And I'll upload that this afternoon. So
Okay.
say goodbye to everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, Kevin. I tell you what, just the talking that you guys did, Jim, you're gonna have to make another trip. Sorry, Denise. You'll have to come to Missouri.
Like you didn't even have fun here at
Again.
all. You got tortured to have to come here.
I don't know.
Thanks, Jim.
I tell
pleasure. And I'll see you later.
Okay. See, Kevin.
the history that you guys talk about, and just kind of the talking shop, and the stories that just kind of go on. You know, that's made you guys who you are, and then add the tooling part of it. It just adds, so much more. So everybody enjoyed it. They're like, "Oh, we should do this every week." So maybe when you're in your studio, we'll have a Zoom call that you and Dan do.
That's possible.
And we'll just Zoom you in from your studio. We've done it a couple times, and
That's possible.
just check in.
Yeah.
It's better than a 6.5 hour drive, I'm sure.
Yeah, a little bit.
So we will be on the after party. Like I said, I'm going to record this coloring part, and then I will upload it this afternoon. That way they're separate videos, and if
Okay.
people want to see it, they can see just that part and not have to watch the talking and the good part.
The talking and the good part.
Yeah, and they can just get right to the feather coloring. All right, bye, Denny.
See ya.